bbbevents.org. We've also created a resource page to help share information from our accredited businesses with consumers so they can support the local economy throughout this time. Please visit bbbshoplocal.org for more information. And then finally, you may or may not be aware that we've recently launched the Brunch with BBB podcast. There's a few episodes up and we've got more good stuff to come. So be sure to search for that wherever you get your podcast. It's called Brunch with BBB, and be on the lookout for upcoming episodes as well. So without further delay, let's dive into this part 2 Q&A with Patrick. As we mentioned, it's a Q&A style webinar, so we'll be sharing your questions with him. If you have any questions, please be sure to put them in the questions box at this time. I've already seen a few come in so far, so we'll be sure to get to those. But Patrick does have a few slides to share with you guys before we dive in of just some changes that since the last time we had him on to present, so wanted to make you guys aware of this. So I'll pass it over to you, Patrick.
Thank you, and good morning to everybody. I appreciate everyone's time, and I'd like to just quickly summarize some of the SBA disaster programs that are available to small businesses and nonprofits across the country. And then we can kind of catch everybody up if anyone hadn't heard of them, and then we can just flow right into the Q&A. So I just want to say, thankfully, SBA is traditionally been at the forefront of lending to small businesses across the country. And during times of disaster, we have the special ability to provide disaster loans to small businesses and nonprofits. And as you know, the coronavirus disaster declaration is now covering all 50 states and territories. And no matter where you are in the country, you would be eligible as a small business owner, as a nonprofit, to apply for an SBA disaster loan. And I'll get into that. So as you can see here, these are the 4 main programs with the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and Grant on the bottom right. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan and Grant both come directly from the SBA, and the loan has a max of $2 million, and the grant has a max of $10,000. They're both accessible from the SBA.gov website, which you'd go to, click on the banner at the top about the coronavirus information, and then you would be taken to the portal to fill out your application. Secondly, we have the small business, or I should say third, the small business debt relief portion is for current SBA loan holders or who are seeking SBA loans at this time. The SBA has granted relief for principal and interest payments for the next 6 months. And if you take out a new SBA loan, those payments will be paid for you until September 27th. And then over on the left, we have the Paycheck Protection Program, which will go into more detail. But this is the one that's being covered a lot in the news, and small businesses and farms and nonprofits are eligible for this. And this is the one where you go to a third-party lender, and the loan is distributed through the lender, and when used for payroll, rent, utilities, mortgage interest, that portion up to 8 weeks of payroll is forgiven. And we'll kind of get into more of that in just a second. Just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, going back to the economic injury loan and grant, the interest rate for the loan is 3.75 for small businesses, 2.75 for nonprofits. And I want to highlight that churches are eligible, and all the common federal strings that are attached to the monies regarding going to religious organizations do not apply. for the economic injury loan. So churches can safely utilize the loan and the grant without having to kind of abide by some of the more traditional government strings that are attached. So that's been a really big piece of the puzzle. FAQ is on the SBA, the frequently asked questions document regarding religious organizations is on the SBA.gov website. So you can read about that if that's something that you want to take a look at. These loans are being distributed as we speak. So a lot of folks have already received their grant, which is $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. And the ballpark amount for the loan is about 6 months of working capital. And that's going to take anywhere from 10 to 22 days to deliver to the small business or nonprofit. You will go on the portal, apply for both the grant and the loan at the same time. And then within a couple of weeks, a loan officer will call you to finalize the loan and give you the amount that's being offered to you. On the, there's no, you don't have to take the money if it's offered to you. The payment is delayed up to 12 months, and there's no prepayment penalty either. So you could confidently take a disaster loan knowing that no principal and interest would be due until 2021. And that money could stay on your books if you needed it, or you could pay whatever type of accounts payable, payroll, fixed debts, and other bills you have during this crisis, this coronavirus disaster. Moving on to the Paycheck Protection Program. This is where a lot of people have questions, and I'm going to probably be answering a lot of paycheck and payroll questions in a minute. But this is for businesses with fewer than 500 employees, as well as those current small business. So this is also, if you happen to be a franchise or something along those lines as a restaurant with multiple locations, you could fall under an exemption and have over 500 employees, and you could apply for the Paycheck Protection Program per location of your restaurant or type of business. The loan amount is going to be hopefully equal to 250% of employers' average monthly payroll, and up to a maximum loan amount of $10 million. Like I said, these are going out through lenders. The application is on the SBA and the Treasury website. I recommend that everybody bookmark the SBA PPP loan page if you're interested in this, and the Treasury as well. And go check the frequently asked questions link on a daily basis. They're being updated on the Treasury website on a daily basis, and I think on the SBA's as well, but Treasury has those Q&As first, and then they are put on the SBA website. So you can use the PPP to pay payroll, wages, commissions. You can also include tips, and as long as you pay your folks, your employees, up to 2 months worth of wages or 8 weeks, that loan amount will be forgiven. You have to use at least 75% of that loan amount to be forgiven, and you can also use 25% of it for mortgage interest, rent, and utilities. So we'll have some questions on that, I'm sure. And then last, how do you apply for the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan? That's the government website, sba.gov/coronavirus. You can just go to sba.gov as well. And if you have questions on your loan application, I'll be giving a number out in a minute for folks that want to check on their economic injury disaster loans. Of course, we have amazing partners like the Better Business Bureau, and SBA also has amazing partners that can help you go over your loan application. So if you're looking for local assistance, during good times, we have folks that help with marketing and business plan writing and financials and loan packaging. And then during times of disaster, these folks kind of pivot and they help folks with their disaster loan applications, which they're currently doing, and also helping with their PPP applications as well. So go to SBA.gov, click on local assistance, and type in your zip code, and you'll be shown the closest office. And they're all doing Zoom and conference calls to work one-on-one with small business owners and filling out these applications. So hopefully that would be a great kind of segue into the questions portion, because I know that there's probably a lot of questions on how to fill this out or where to go, and I'll open it up to questions here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Patrick. We already have a few in. So just a reminder for everyone, if you have questions, you can put them in the questions box and we'll be sure to get to them. The first question we have says, what is included as state and local taxes for PPP application?
Yeah, so it's good question. So you want to go to, I'm going to do a lot of forwarding, because payroll is one of the trickier questions to answer. And there's also healthcare benefits. There's also unemployment taxes, and there's state, local, and federal taxes. And so what you want to do is you want to go to the SBA.gov website under PPP, and you want to go to the interim final rule. And let me show you what it's going to look like. It's going to look like, where is it here? Hold on. Sorry, I'm just going to do a quick little shuffle over here to my documents and try to scroll down here. And it's going to look something like this here. And then you go down here, and then just do a quick search. Just do a quick search on there for taxes. See Command F or Control F for find. Say taxes. And it's going to tell you everywhere in the document taxes is located. And then you can find it. So here it says under the what qualifies as payroll cost, did a quick search under taxes on the interim final rule. It says payment of state and local taxes assessed on compensation of employees. So hopefully others that have questions similar can go on to that interim final rule and search that way and come up with your answers. So just kind of a quick brief on how to do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. The next question we have says, if we apply for both EIDL and PPP, does this affect whether PPP will be forgiven?
No, it will not. So we are encouraging everyone to apply for the grant, economic injury grant, the economic injury loan, and the PPP. Have those funds available if you need them. Like I said, under the economic injury loan, you're under no obligation to take it. It'll sit there in the queue as being offered. And if you need it, you can always have that money dispersed, and it will not affect your application into the PPP program. The only rule is if you use the payroll protection program for, let's say, salary for the next 8 weeks, the rule is you're not supposed to use the economic injury loan for payroll for that same period.
Mm-hmm.
So just
Okay.
different. You have to use it for a different purpose, specifically a different month or some other, rent, utilities, accounts payable, other bills, other fixed debts.
Gotcha. Okay. The next question we have says, can a PPP be used for anything if a client is not trying to apply for loan forgiveness?
Well, it's, it could be, but the intent is for payroll. So you would be better off taking out an economic injury disaster loan because the term is 30 years and the interest rate is fairly low, unless you want a kind of a 2-year term on a loan at 1% interest. But basically the forgiveness portion isn't really the bulk of what's going to incentivize people to use that program.
Gotcha. Thank you. The next question we have says, if you are approved for a PPP loan, what is the deadline to submit documentation to ask for forgiveness? Also, if you receive a PPP loan, do you have to submit a forgiveness request, or can you just pay the money back over the 2-year period?
Right. So let's go back into the final rule here. And let's look at the intent here is that let's see. I'll punt on that one. I will come back and answer that question.
Okay, sounds good. I'll mark that in there, so that we'll come back to it. But then we did have a question from someone going back to the taxes for PPP. They said, is SUTA included in the PPP state tax of the PPP application?
Yes, go to the interim final rule and do a quick search. And if it's not there, go to the latest Q&A. It has a lot of information on what is included and what is not included in the tax in the payroll calculation. So I will kind of defer on the more in-depth, like tax payroll type questions.
Awesome, great. Okay, and we also had someone ask about, can you send the link to that interim final rule? Yes, we can get that to you guys. So we'll make note of that to send it out after the session. But we'll go to our next question. And it says, if someone only applies for EIDL 10,000 emergency grant and applies for nothing else, does the $10,000 grant have to be paid back?
Say that again.
It says, if someone only applies for the EIDL $10,000 emergency grant and applies for nothing else, does the $10,000 grant have to be paid back?
No.
Okay. Next, it says, is the EIDL still available with the $10,000 grant, or has it adjusted to $1,000 per employee up to $10,000?
Yes, it's always been up to $10,000. I just think people didn't notice that, but yes, it's always been up to $10,000, and the criteria is now $1,000 per employee.
Gotcha. Okay. And then in regards to PPP, the question is, I was told that banks are only accepting their applications. The SBA loan application was not being accepted at banks. Is this correct?
It depends on the bank. So because of social distancing and some of the branches being closed, some banks have put up a kind of just a mirror image of the document online, and having people fill it out online versus hand walking it or going into the drive-through to drop it off or trying to meet with the loan officer. So you want to contact your bank to see how they like that application delivered. I would print just the SBA standard PPP loan application off the SBA website just to fill out and know what that form is asking, and gather all your payroll documents as it says, and then call the bank and see how they want that submitted.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that. And someone asked, any update on the EIDL grant status?
EIDL status. So those should be coming out within, it depends on when you applied. So if you applied for the economic injury disaster loan back in the beginning of April, those funds should be hitting relatively soon, and they should be working, they should be calling you and getting the closing information from you. If you applied recently, it may take up to 21 days for that loan to process. So at this time, actually, let me give you the phone number that I mentioned earlier. This is the number to call to check on your loan application if you've already applied for the economic injury disaster loan with the SBA. So the number is 817-868-2300. And I'll repeat that. It's 817-868-2300, and that's for the Fort Worth Disaster Loan Processing Center. And you can give them your information, your EIN or your Social Security, and they can tell you if it's active in the SBA queue. And they will not be able to tell you, they haven't told folks previously, I should say, how long it's going to take or how much is being offered, but they can at least tell you it's active in the system and it's being worked on.
Okay, great. So again, 817-868-2300. Thank you for that.
Right.
The next question we have says, I'm a sole proprietor without a separate business bank account. I just use my personal account. Can I still qualify for PPP?
Yes, so as a sole proprietor, you can now apply as of last Friday, and you can use you can basically use however you pay yourself, and I would say maybe go back to your 1819 tax returns, look at your Schedule C, look at your Schedule E, or go back to your business bank account and see how you are withdrawing money and paying yourself from. So that would be a way to kind of calculate your, for lack of a better word, your wages or your payroll as a business owner. And the great thing, like I mentioned earlier, the Small Business Technology Development Center across the state and SCORE, all these, there's about 24 offices and probably hundreds of counselors that are walking people through these same exact questions online over Zoom and over conference calls across the state. So please give them a call, set up a time to go over the application with them. So when you submit it, it's 100% accurate.
Okay, great tip. The next question we have is about someone, they filled out their application for the $10,000 grant, but we're wondering if they should receive an email confirmation to let you know your application has been received. Should they look for an email? Should they use that number that you mentioned earlier? How can they know it's been received?
I would call that number and just ask them. And the earlier you call in the morning, the better. If you call right now, probably be about an hour wait. Call them in the morning, like between 6 and 8, probably like a 5 to 10 minute wait. But you could try now as well. You might get it in early, a little bit earlier. We're on the East Coast, so that helps.
And again, that was 817-868-2300.
Correct.
The next question we have says, let's see here. If you aren't allowed to use the EIDL for payroll during the same 8-week period for PPP, does that include the payroll costs above $100,000 for certain employees with that annual salary amount? In other words, employee A's salary is only able to be covered to a certain point with PPP during the 8-week period. Can the EIDL be used for excess for employee A's salary?
It's a good question. I will find out the answer to that.
Okay, great. I'll mark that we'll come back to that. Another question we have says, if you apply for the $10,000 grant and get the PPP loan, does the $10,000 grant have to be repaid?
No, so if you get the grant, which is coming out right now to folks, and then you apply to the PPP, that $10,000 will be included in your loan forgiveness. So ideally, you wouldn't be forgiven for both the 10,000 and the 8 weeks. The 10,000 would be worked into your loan forgiveness for the PPP and would be subtracted from your loan forgiveness.
Great, thank you. Another question we have says, can you add the business owner's compensation to the PPP?
Yeah, that would be kind of like a de facto salary, right? Or wages. So yes, yeah. I mean, the problem with answering some of these, and I don't want to say problem, but the challenge with answering some of these is everyone's corporate structure is different. People pay themselves in various ways. Some of them are easily through software, through QuickBooks, are easily followed and have a clear kind of accounting string attached to it. And sometimes people withdraw money from their company without even writing a check to themselves. They just take the money out of their company and then just use it for rent and things. So it's really, really difficult to answer specific or general questions like that without having some of the more in-depth answers to some of, like, how do you pay yourself? How is your company structured? And so I would always recommend, please go to the Small Business Technology Development Center, have them walk you through some of these finer payroll questions, and go to SCORE, have them walk you through some of these finer payroll questions, because you really want to have something that's nice and tidy when you take it to the bank to get this loan process, because they are processing thousands, tens of thousands of these. And if it comes to a point where your application is not literally, in the category it's good to go or no go, and you're held up, it's going to be very frustrating. So I really urge people to go to the Small Business Technology Development Center.org website, schedule a online virtual meeting, and also go to score.org and schedule something with the Raleigh or Chapel Hill, Durham chapter.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have a question about, is there a number to call to check on the PPP loan application? Is that the same number that you mentioned earlier? Or is there something else they can do?
So PPP loan applications go through your third-party lender, whatever lender you're choosing to submit it with. Credit union, non-bank, non-depository, big bank, little bank, community bank. So you're just going to go back and check with the bank that you've submitted it with. There's no SBA portal per se that's going to give you a quick answer and say, yes, it's been submitted. So those all go through the lender, and the lender would have that information.
Okay, great. Another question we have says, what counts as payroll costs, and is health coverage included?
Yeah, I'm going to refer back to the interim final rule. So please go to the SBA.gov website, look up the PPP page on the website, and you're going to want to just do a quick search. Just go to the document, hit control find or whatever's on your thing, hit health care. And then you're going to hopefully, let's see if it's on there. Let's see, go to the FAQs, type in health. So here it is. It says payments for the provision of employee benefits consisting of group health care coverage, including insurance premiums. So there's different answers on the FAQs that you want to take a look at, just to make sure you're filling it out correctly.
Great, thanks for that tip. So be sure if you have other specific questions, using that search feature is awesome. You can find details around a specific topic you're looking for. The next question we have says, how much of my loan will be forgiven if not used for payroll costs?
You can use up to 25% of the loan amount on non-payroll costs, including rent, mortgage interest, and utilities. So let's say you take out 100,000, you use 25 for rent, utilities, mortgage or mortgage interest, that will also be forgiven. But if you use it for anything else, then it will not be forgiven.
Okay, great. And just wanted to, we had a few questions that we were going to come back to, Patrick. Would you like me to read those again, or did you need to kind of do some research on your end, and then we can send out the response after?
Yeah, let me do that. I'll go back, I'll go into the FAQs, and I would, please advise them to go in there and do a little research themselves, because it may take less time for them to do it, and then I'll just confirm the answer that they get when they find it.
Right. So just to confirm, we got a few people submit questions about, getting these questions answered and that sort of thing. So this recording will be distributed. You guys can listen to it again if you have, if you want to listen back to his response. And then we'll also be sending out some links. Some people asked for, like the link to some of the websites that he's used. We'll include those, as well as his response to the two questions that we kind of left out. So one was about the EIDL for payroll. If you need to tap into the EIDL and the PPP, what you can do with that. And then the other one is about the deadline to submit documentation to request forgiveness and how all that works. So we will be sure to get all of that put together. It looks like you guys are out of questions.
I have a quick little comment I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
So So there's been some developments on the PPP program through the SBA. So some of the financial technology companies have now entered into the PPP loan program, i.e. let's see here, I'll bring it up. PayPal has now, that's basically brand new as of yesterday. That was not available, but now this morning you can apply now through PayPal for a PPP. And the folks that also bring you QuickBooks into it are also going to be launching their PPP portal in the next, let's see here, see if it's open, within the next couple of days. So I've also heard that Square is also going to be doing PPP loans. I haven't checked on them yet, but you may want to check Square as well. And those are the big financial technology companies that have now gotten into the PPP loan program. And the good thing about them is that they scale very quickly, being non-traditional and non-brick and mortar companies. So they may have a better, or you may have a easier time at this time going to one of the financial technology companies than maybe a traditional brick and mortar bank out there. So try both. They both have advantages and disadvantages. The advantage of having an on-site lender is that you can call them and talk to them and they can answer questions about your loan application. The disadvantage right now is that some of them are working with their own clients, and some of them are now opening back up their applications to a second wave of applications. The downside to the online folks is that it would be harder to get a hold of them if you do have questions on your particular loan application.
Okay, great. Thank you again, Patrick, so much for joining us and for all of our attendees. Again, you can find information on our other upcoming webinars and register for those at bbbevents.org. And please reach out if you have any questions, and we'll be sending out this recording as well as some of those additional questions. So be on the lookout for that. But thanks again, Patrick, and I hope you all have a great day.